Hey, third graders. Today we are going to compare and contrast some texts. The one that we read this week, Back of the Bus, and this one called Rosa Parks, Hero of Our Time. And we're going to look at these two different stories and kind of think about how Rosa Parks and her actions affected historical events. And we're going to look at a chart and kind of compare these two stories. And then you're going to be doing some work in Google Classroom with some vocabulary words and also a little reading response as well. So let's read this story and let's think what we learned from this compared to what we learned from Back of the Bus. It's called Rosa Parks, Hero of Our Time. In 1955, Rosa Parks and her husband were living in Montgomery, Alabama. She had a job sewing clothes. One day after work, she boarded a bus to go home. The bus became crowded. When a white man got on the bus, there were no empty seats, so the bus driver told Rosa to give up her seat. Rosa knew this was not fair. So with bravery and dignity, she said very softly, "No." The police were called. Rosa was arrested and taken to jail. This was December 1st, 1955. Rosa was released that night, but 4 days later, she had to stand trial. Black people became very angry about this. Some white people were angry too. They knew Rosa was right. African Americans throughout Montgomery decided they would not ride the buses the day of the trial. Instead, they walked, and they gave each other rides. They continued doing this for a whole year. This was called the Montgomery Bus Boycott. Finally, the United States Supreme Court, the highest court in the nation, said that Rosa was right. African Americans could sit anywhere they wanted to on the buses, and they did not have to give their seats to white people. So the boycott ended. Rosa Parks' bravery helped make life better for all Americans. So this, right, is a nonfiction text, and here's a photograph that shows us a picture of Rosa Parks, and she's being fingerprinted right here. That's what happens when you get arrested and go to jail. They put your fingers in ink and put that on a card, and then those go on file so that they know that you have a history. So in this story, or this article, we learn some things about Rosa Parks, some things that are similar and some things that are different from the other story. If you notice, they talk about Montgomery, which is what we learned at the beginning of Back of the Bus. If you can remember at the very beginning, not the title page, but we learned right here, Montgomery, Alabama was the location. And here's the date. Look at that, December 1st, 1955. This article also tells us, right, that that's what happened on December 1st, 1955. So somebody, the author, right, of this, who was Aaron Reynolds, he took this information and he turned it into a fiction story from someone else's perspective, a different point of view, right, the point of view of the boy. Let's kind of compare these two texts and figure out what they both kind of tell us about Rosa Parks herself. Okay, so I made a T-chart and I'm comparing the two stories and I'm focusing on the character Rosa Parks, right? And Back to the Bus, we learn that she's pretty quiet. She's very strong. She's got an inner strength, right? Because she's brave enough to tell the bus driver that she's not going to move. I would also describe her as playful because remember, she was rolling the marble back to the boy in the back of the bus. She had a smile on her face, right? She looked very pleasant. She also refused to be bullied. She said no, and she kind of stuck to her guns, right? And then they came and arrested her. So that's what happened on the back of the bus, right? In Rosa Parks' Hero of Our Time, right, we learned that she stood up for what she believed in. She was a quiet leader. She motivated other people to take that stand too. Remember, it said that blacks and whites were upset and knew that she was right in what she was doing. Definitely she was brave. We could say she was brave here too. I would say brave and strong could, right, be synonyms. They could mean the same thing. She also brought about change by being an active citizen. Remember at the beginning of this week, we talked about being an active citizen was what we were going to focus on in this reading unit. And that was proof that she was an active citizen, right? She stood up for something and she commanded some change and it happened. In this article, we learn a lot, right? We learn a lot about what happens after she's arrested, right? What happens after that. In the back of the bus, here's the page where she is arrested. Remember the part where it says that policeman clinks them metal things on her hands, quick and loud, like the screen door slamming, and off the bus they go. And then the next page, which is the last page of the story, right, just shows the boy and his mother, and they're still on the bus. So we don't know what happens after she gets taken off the bus, right? But the story that we just read, Rosa Parks' Hero of Our Time, explains a little bit more. So we know more of the ending. And you've learned a lot, I bet, about civil rights and about standing up for what you believe in and learning about Rosa Parks in probably first and second grade. So you had some schema on that, right? But we took these two stories today and compared them, right? Some things were the same, definitely talking about some things that were different. So today, when you get into Google Classroom, the assignment, you're going to be looking at some vocabulary words that go along with these two stories.